college, Professor Suganti, the Chief Coordinator, Professor Swaminathan, who gave a very clear explanation of the CEG Tech Forum, the guest of honor, Mr. Vikram Subbaraj, who gave you all what I think is very good advice to have fun, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Velraj, who rightfully said that all of you are the assets of our state, the Treasurer, Professor Senthil Kumar, who is going to deliver the vote of thanks, the many organizers and the directors of the Tech Forum who brought you all together, the alumni, the faculty, the students. Thank you all for inviting me and for patiently waiting to hear me speak. I really appreciate it. Thank you. The first thing I should say is that I'm very pleasantly surprised, being an old smoker myself, that it took so long to find a box of matches. So clearly a lot of people have given up the habit, which is a good thing for society. As a finance minister, I get invited to speak much more often than I used to as an MLA. Very often I find there are files pending or some request for funding. Sunday afternoon I flew back from Delhi. I was asked to inaugurate a basketball tournament, and sure enough they talked about some funding required. We're happy to try and do what we can. Vice Chancellor talked about a file here. I'm happy to do what I can on that also. But I choose to attend as many functions as I can where there are young people, particularly college students and particularly premier colleges like the College of Engineering, Guindy. Let me tell you why. On September 11th, 2001, I was in the basement of the World Trade Center when the first plane hit the North Tower. Subsequently, I came out. It was a long story for various good luck. I escaped unhurt. Second plane hit. The towers crashed. At that time, I was an employee of Lehman Brothers. The North Tower fell down in such a way that it just sliced through the building, next building, which was the Lehman Brothers and American Express building. So we lost our offices. So we had just joined work. I had only graduated from business school in 2001. So we had no office. The company was practically shut down. The markets were shut down for a week. Everything was chaos. I think it took about 4 or 5 days for everything to recover. And if I'm not mistaken, before I had ever done a single day's work at the bank, September 18th or 19th, when the ban on flying was lifted, Lehman Brothers asked me to go back to Boston. We flew back to Boston for recruiting. The value of human resources in high-end businesses like consulting, investment banking is so immeasurable that without an office, with the markets half closed, with the world in complete disruption, we did not lose sight of the fact that we needed to start recruiting for next year's batch that year, that week. And the reason they sent all of us is that the system is very clear. They don't send MIT graduates to go and recruit at Harvard or vice versa. They send MIT graduates to go recruit at MIT and Harvard graduates to go recruit at Harvard. Lehman employees were Harvard graduates. And the first line we are supposed to talk about is how many years ago we were in the seat of the students looking at somebody else talking about a company or a bank or a career or a market. Because what you want to do is build that connection, that empathetic link to the students. Because if you say, one day I was like you, automatically in the student's brain it fires, one day I can be like him. So this connection that you have to make is the most important part of recruiting. And for me personally, this is why I always want to come and talk to students, particularly engineering students, particularly in top universities, because one day I was like you. I was an organizer of the Festember festival in Trichy, in REC. I also wrote some exams, went to some universities, and today I'm me. So any day you can be not just like me, as the dean said, but better than me, faster than me. So I want you to remember that. A college like this is a golden opportunity. What you learn in class is very little. It was always very little. And with the advent of the internet, where you can get the equivalent of a PhD level of education, the real value of kind of technical education from a professor is diminishing all the time. Don't get me wrong, the best professors can really get you to think. I've had the luxury of learning from many Nobel laureates, and I'm not underrating that. But purely from a basic knowledge, which is what you're looking at as an undergraduate degree, it is not that big a deal. The real value of going to universities like this is what you learn from your fellow students daily, the people you talk about, what happened in class, or the projects, or the homework, and so forth. What we learned during COVID is that that value is immense, even at school levels, even at elementary school levels, because once we went to remote learning, we realized what the consequences of the lack of social interaction, of interpersonal kind of, relationships was. And that's why at least we pride ourselves in the government of Tamil Nadu that our global economic advisors, the primary advice they gave us to start was remedial education, to try and bring back children to school, help them transition back, and make up for the lack of social interaction by having after-hours programs in every village, in every block, to try and bring back the students to the quality of education, the quality of learning they used to have. It is completely true that the students and the youth of today are the future of our state. We cannot afford to lose a generation, so we focus on that. You are lucky. You're already relatively mature. You're already relatively aware. And you have access to technology probably better than most students, at least in our state and our society. But even for you, I would suggest that the learning that you get from engagement in clubs, in forums, like the Tech Forum, in other student activities, is not to be underestimated. In my own case, at various stages in my life, I did various kinds of clubs and forums. But when I was at MIT, the two things that I really value, I learned to sail. Part of the sailing club. MIT has a wonderful sailing program. Many of the America's Cup winners graduates from MIT. And I learned a lot about wine because my senior was from a Chilean wine family, vineyard, and he taught us a lot. So you learn many different things about life as well, not just about education. And the better the university you go to, the greater the quality of the visitors that come and give lectures, whether it's TED Talks, whether it's lunches, whether it's evening events, recruiting events. In fact, in my opinion, the real distinction between going to a top, one of the top 15 or 20 universities and the rest is merely the quality of visiting faculty or executives who come and speak. At MIT, we were so blessed. It was the height of the first .com boom. But we'd have like 10 superheroes to see every day. There'd be a Warren Buffett, a chairman of a company, Akamai startup founder, MIT alum. So much so that we used to decide, today let's go for Thai food. Yesterday we had pizza because different events, they'd serve different food. The speakers were so good we couldn't select between them. We just decide which lunch was better because they'd give free lunch as well, the speakers. So starting with this event, but whenever you have guest speakers at the university, please take the time to attend. The value of learning from and hearing from people who have done a lot of things is again immeasurable. I'm glad to hear from multiple people here your engagement with the community through projects, through other kind of internships and so forth. It's important, especially when you are at exclusive institutions. It's important to keep grounded, to understand the society in which you operate, what are the conditions in which most people live, and to always be inclusive in your thinking, to remember those who don't have the kind of opportunity you have. It's also important, I think, that the university as a whole is integrated with industry at multiple levels, because then the ability to shape the training and the curriculum to match what the industry is looking for, which is changing all the time, increases. And the odds of successful placement of all of you as you come out, or the kind of startups that you can make, really increases. I'm not probably the right guy to talk about tech or anything like that. I'm 56 years old. I'm yesterday's man. So what I'll do instead is use my experience to maybe give you some advice about careers and life. Always look to find your own unique path. Never set your benchmarks or your ambitions or your goal based on anybody else. I'm an extreme example of that. I always knew my destiny. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather all served the public. One day I knew I would come back to do public service. But I chose a 30-year path that took me through 4 different degrees or 4 different majors in many universities, in many countries, at global responsibilities, learned a lot of things, made a lot of money, saw the world, and then came back. So within the domain that I had, where I didn't control where I was born, I kind of knew where I was going to end up. I forged my own path that way. Most of you don't have that clear a destination like I do or I did. So you should try to create your own path. Take risks. You are already at a place where the odds are in your favor. So if you think, should I not, take the risk anyway, because the odds are with you. You're already at the top of the pyramid in terms of opportunity and education. And if you fail, so you fail. All success is temporary, all failure is temporary. We win one election, pretty soon we got to get ready for the other. You IPO your company, the stock will drop one day, it will rise another day. You play some sport, someday you're the winner, next day you're the loser, some other day you're the winner again. So failure is actually not such a bad thing. You learn a lot. And your circumstances are so good. As I said, I was running a big team of almost 400 people when Lehman went bankrupt in 2008. I was in Mumbai. It was not in my control. But I said to many of them then, I'm experiencing this when I'm 42. I know I'll get through this and be better. Many of you are experiencing it when you're 23, 24, 25. I've been the biggest recruiter at IITs, IIMs for, Lehman Brothers on behalf of for 2-3 years. So we had hundreds of people who were really talented. I said, your talent will carry you, but having this experience so young will make you immensely more successful. And I'm glad to say, looking back today, many of them doing, almost every single one of them doing exceedingly well. Startup founders in India, big hedge funds in New York, in London, asset managers, regulators, doing brilliantly well. So failure is not something to be worried about. It teaches you, if you have the capacity, you have the talent, you can get through it and get better. Have fun. You only live once. When I became a minister, there was many of my former institutions asked me to attend some kind of felicitations or valedictory functions. And I remember one where I only went to school for 2 years, for +2. I left boarding school in 10th and went for 2 years in Madurai. And a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, he was junior, who's now very successful. He recently sold his company to Verizon, made lots of money. He's been in the tech space for a long time. He was a former Apple employee in the US. And he said, the thing I liked about Thiaga, all the teachers and the parents said, oh, be careful, the guy parties hard. He's always kind of bunking and doing other things. But what I liked about him, he said, he played hard and he worked harder. So he always got good results. So as long as you work harder, party hard. right? Never lose compassion or empathy. Part of the problem with success is it starts making you believe that you're somehow special, that you have earned it uniquely, and therefore you should not worry about others. In fact, it's completely wrong. The number of variables in your control are so few. Most of us are hugely privileged where we started, the kinds of families, the kinds of opportunities, the kind of education. So the more successful you get, the more compassion, the more empathy you must have. I recently made a statement in the House that Tamil Nadu is not a poor state. I gave some statistics. And based on that, I said we are an aspirational society. Our job is not to just make sure everybody's fed, because most people are. I'm not saying all are. We still have a lot of work to do. But I need to worry about fulfilling the expectations of an aspirational society when I set the budget. But in the same speech, I said it is an administrative failure and a shame to me that despite our best intentions, when we design safety nets, we are able to hit the second lowest part of the pyramid, but the truly bottom of the pyramid, we're not able to reach them because they have nobody to help them enter the system, nobody to tell them how to fill the forms, nobody to tell them where to go and sign the paper. So I said that is failure, we regret it, we will correct it, but we are not a poor society. So about 3 days later, a TV channel comes to see me, and among many questions they ask me, was it not a bit rude or discompassionate to the poor people in Tamil Nadu to say we are not a poor state? And I said, that's exactly the opposite of what I meant. If I am a poor state, I can afford to have a lot of poor people and not feel bad about it. If I am not a poor state, it goes against my moral fiber, my conscience, to be a well-to-do state and still have poor people, right? It's the exact opposite. The better off you are, the more you must feel the compassion to take care of poor people. So never lose sight of that. With all of that heavy advice, let me say, have fun. I wish this event a lot of success. I know a lot of people have worked hard on it. I'm sure you'll learn a lot, but don't forget to meet a lot of new people, have a lot of new discussions, have a lot of fun, and I wish you all a good event, good careers at college, and good futures in society. Thank you.